Today we're going to do a firing up on this car. It's a 1913 Stanley Model 76, and this car is unique in the collection because it was sold as a new car back in 1913 when Clarence Marshall was the Stanley dealer for Delaware, which was from 1910 to 1920. And when he decided to start collecting Stanleys, he bought it back from the original owner for $150 in 1940. And so we know where this car has been every single day it has existed, which is pretty unusual for an antique car that's well over 100 years old.
107, I believe?
107, right. So
you got some age on it.
Today we're going to fire it up, and Gregg is going to do the honors.
Yep.
He's one of our younger members, but is also a well-qualified Stanley driver.
Thank you.
So he's going to fire it up today.
Now, there's a few different steps to get one of these cars ready. We burn liquid fuels for these vehicles, and this is actually a dual fuel vehicle. Kerosene for our main burner, and we have hexane for our pilot system, which would have been gasoline back in the day. Now, we would have to pressurize these fuels in order to burn them. So what we've already done is pressurized our tanks for our pilot and fuel system prior to doing this demo for you guys. One of the first things we would do, if we put the car away and everything was correct, our boiler should be completely full of water. This is our boiler here. We need to take off 1.5 buckets of water in order to give us a space at the top of the boiler for the steam to collect. So this is going to start our process of pulling our 1.5 buckets off.
Let me open.
I was going to say, do we have a stack blower?
We do.
Now this is where we would start heating up different elements of the pilot. We have to heat the fuel, which will be pressurized in a liquid, in order to turn it into a gaseous state in order for us to burn it. Back in the day, we would use an old style blowtorch, which once again, same process, have to heat it up, burn the liquid fuel. Today we were very fortunate to have propane, which is a much easier fuel to use. You know, I think they're about the same temperature. Propane might burn a little bit hotter.
I don't know. I don't know if
What you saw there is when we put these cars away, there's still going to be some residual fuel in our main fuel system, which will be introduced into the burner with these two burner forks. Once it makes it to these forks, the fuel will be vaporized and be shot into our mixing tubes, which are these two tubes here. This is where our fuel and air will mix and be allowed to be burned in the burner, which will be underneath the boiler here. Now, I don't know how well you can see this, but we have a nice little door over here where I'll introduce our torch in to light our pilot. And just like that, our pilot is lit, and that's going to slowly start warming up all the vaporizing tubing, which will then heat our main fuel to allow it to be vaporized. Now, thanks to a thing called Moving Magic, we took our 1.5 buckets of water off. Now, after everything's preheated with our pilot, we can start warming up our burner forks that I mentioned earlier. We're going to be using our firing up valve, which introduces the pilot fuel, our hexane, into the main burner circuit. What that will help do is continue to preheat everything so that we can switch to the kerosene, which vaporizes at a higher temperature. So we bring out the nice little blowtorch again.
Doing the front dressing today?
Alright, now that we've preheated our forks, everything's warmed up a little further, so I'm going to hit it on the firing up valve. If you guys are lucky, our audio might pick up the whoop of it igniting. Just like that, our main burner's lit, running our pilot fuel. We will let this warm up and run for about 5 to 10 minutes until everything's adequately warmed up so we can switch to our kerosene. Now that we've been warming up our main burner, our vaporizer for our main burner, we're going to start switching it to our kerosene. So what you saw me do, or maybe not see me do, when we were switching to the kerosene, I jogged between our firing up valve, which introduced our hexane, and the kerosene. Helps bring the transition a little easier. Right now we're burning purely kerosene. You might be able to hear it's a little bit louder. So I gotta talk a little louder. What Steve is now doing in the car is usually when the car is underway, we have fuel pumps driven off the rear axle. This is for our water and fuel and steam oil. One we're going to focus on at this point in time is the main fuel. What that means is we have a hand pump to manually pump our fuel pressure while the car is sitting still when we're firing up. So right now Steve's keeping an eye on our pressure for our main fuel, our kerosene, and keeping it at an adequate pressure so we can fire the car. You might notice a little bit of water vapor coming out of our top here. That is just residual moisture that was in our boiler, in our flues. Now that we're actually getting heat to sufficiently steam it off, it'll clear itself out, and eventually you won't see any of that. Now that we're up to pressure, we have about 450 pounds of pressure in our boiler. We can now shut our little flap up front and our hood. When I'm going to do now is hit the front blower down, which helps preheat our water indicator, our 3-tube. More. More.
Batteries real quick and we'll be all set.
We'll explain the low down real quick.